At that time, Ohio State wasn't particularly committed to track and field. So I went to UCLA, and I had an experience there that was a trigger, that was really a genesis for a great deal of what I do today. So our locker room for track and field at UCLA was in Pauley Pavilion, which is where the basketball team practiced. And this was the early 70s. And so my 3 years at UCLA were John Wooden's final 3 years at UCLA. And so I had the opportunity to watch Coach Wooden coach and win his 9th and 10th national championships. Now, having been raised here in the Midwest, I was coached the Midwest way in the 60s, etc. And the Midwest way was if the coach was nice to you, he only swore at you and hit you if he was in a good mood. So I assume that's how it's all done. And so I go to UCLA, and they call him the Wizard of Westwood. And I'm watching this guy coach, and I got to meet the basketball players, all kind of stuff. And I'm watching these guys, and it's incredible what John Wooden was doing. He was genuinely elite. He was exceptional in the way that he led. And the first thing that got my attention was John Wooden was the most intense coach I'd ever been around, and he never got angry. Try that one on for size sometime. Because today, when coaches today, if they're intense, typically you equate it with what? Getting angry. And so John Wooden's ability to capture the hearts and minds of these young men and align them around a common purpose and execute national championship winning strategies is incredible. And so that triggered in me this insatiable curiosity for how does someone go from average to good? How do you go from good to great? How do you go from great to elite? How do you do that? Individually, as a producer, as a person, as an athlete, as a student, as a mom or dad, a husband or wife. How do you lead that? How do you create an organization, small or big, where everyone's committed to elite? How do you do that? And so I've given my life to figuring out how to do that. Because I myself, as an athlete, a track athlete, obviously I want to win. I don't want to lose. And then as I've gotten older and I started my consulting practice, it's really all about helping organizations that want to do that, to go from here to here. Make the move. Make the move. So I started the business. I graduated from UCLA, coached high school football and track in Los Angeles, went off to graduate school at Princeton, coached there at the university, went off to Europe, more studies, back to the United States, more studies, and then went to Southern California, San Diego, and started the business. And my wife raised her kids. We serve organizations literally all over the world. We don't specialize in an industry, we specialize in the disciplines of excellence. That's what we do. We serve virtually every industry. 4 years ago, we were invited to a fundraiser at Urban Meyer's house, Urban and Shelley's house, and I didn't know Coach Meyer at the time. And so my wife and I go, and we're standing there off the side of the kitchen, and Urban walks by, and he looks at me, comes back, and says, "You look familiar. Have we met before?" And what I wanted to say was, "No, you look familiar." I didn't say that. I wanted to, but I missed the opportunity. But I said, "Oh, my name's Kight." He said, "Were you here last year for this thing?" I said, "No." He goes, "What do you do for a living?" And I started to share with him briefly what I'm going to share with you today. When it comes to performance, when it comes to improving the way something happens, that guy doesn't dabble. And again, you don't have to be an Ohio State fan, you don't have to be an Urban Meyer fan to acknowledge the kinds of things people like that do. And so I'm not a dabbler either. So we were immediately kind of brought together on a common belief in the importance of what you see on that screen. And so here's what I share with him and I want to share with you. This is called the performance pathway. And this is the physics of performance. I'm going to teach you something very simple. Leaders create culture, culture drives behavior, and behavior produces results. That's the physics of performance. Every organization, small or large, is subject to those physics. If you run a 2-person shop, that works for you. If you run a 10-person shop, that works for you. If you've got 200,000 people, that works for you. So leaders know what they do every day, that creates culture. And culture, another phrase for culture is performance environment. And culture is what drives and sustains behavior, and behavior produces results. I'm sharing this with Coach Meyer. He says, "Sit down for a second." So we sit down. 2 hours later, we're still talking.